Have you ever felt the sting of rejection pierce your heart, leaving you isolated while everyone else belongs? The pain of exclusion runs deeper than any physical wound, especially for a child who has already lost everything. Our story today follows a young orphan whose innocent faith becomes the unlikely bridge that mends a family fractured by secrets and misunderstandings. Through her journey, we discover that sometimes the most powerful prayers come from those who have the least, yet give the most. Ellie pressed her small palm against the frosted window, watching snowflakes dance in the golden glow of streetlights. 7 years old and already intimately acquainted with loss, she traced invisible patterns on the glass, while the orphanage grew quieter around her. Most children had been collected for holiday visits with potential foster families, leaving behind only those whom fate had overlooked once more. "Miss Porter says my new family is coming soon," she whispered to no one in particular, her breath creating a small cloud on the window. Her auburn hair fell in unkempt waves around her thin shoulders, and her green eyes, too old for her young face, reflected the dancing lights outside. Sister Margaret watched from the doorway, her heart heavy. The Callahan family had indeed inquired about Ellie, but their sudden silence over the past week suggested yet another disappointment. 23 years working at St. Andrew's Home for Children had taught her that hope was both essential and dangerous for children like Ellie. "Time for bed, little one," Sister Margaret said gently, approaching with careful steps. "Tomorrow brings new possibilities." Ellie turned, clutching a worn leather bookmark, the only possession she had from her mother. The small cross embossed on its surface had faded from years of tiny fingers seeking comfort from its familiar ridges. "Sister, do you think they forgot about me?" Ellie asked, her voice smaller than usual. Sister Margaret knelt before her, straightening the slightly too large nightgown that hung from Ellie's narrow frame. "God never forgets any of his children, Ellie, and neither will the Wright family." 3 days later, a black sedan pulled into the orphanage driveway, its tires crunching on the newly fallen snow. Thomas Callahan stepped out, his imposing frame hunched against the December chill. At 42, grief had etched permanent lines around his eyes, adding years to an otherwise handsome face. Behind him, his son Noah emerged reluctantly, a 12-year-old boy trapped in the shadow of familial tragedy. Sister Margaret greeted them in the modest reception area, her practiced smile masking concern. "Mr. Callahan, we were beginning to worry. Your wife's last call mentioned coming before Christmas." Thomas removed his hat, revealing prematurely graying hair. "There's been a change of plans, sister. Rebecca, my wife, she's had difficulties adjusting to the idea." He lowered his voice. "Her sister's death has affected her more deeply than we anticipated. The holidays have made it worse." Noah stood slightly apart, staring at the worn carpet. His striped sweater hung loosely on his frame, and unlike his father's polished appearance, his sneakers were scuffed from deliberate dragging. Sister Margaret nodded understandingly. "These matters require careful consideration. However, Ellie has been told about your interest. Perhaps a brief meeting today might ease the transition?" Thomas hesitated, glancing at his son, whose face had hardened into careful neutrality. "I suppose that would be fine. Rebecca couldn't come, but she sends her regrets." Ellie sat in the small library, carefully turning pages of an illustrated Bible. When the door opened, she jumped to her feet, smoothing down her best dress, a hand-me-down navy blue pinafore with a slightly crooked collar. She had spent the morning allowing Sister Agnes to brush her unruly hair into submission, secured now with a ribbon that had seen better days. "Ellie, this is Mr. Callahan and his son Noah," Sister Margaret introduced them. Thomas awkwardly extended his hand, which Ellie shook with surprising formality. "It's very nice to meet you, sir," she said, the rehearsed words tumbling out in a rush. Noah remained by the door, arms crossed defensively across his chest. When Ellie smiled at him, he looked away, studying the bookshelves with exaggerated interest. "Noah," Thomas prompted quietly. "Hi," the boy mumbled, still avoiding eye contact. The meeting progressed with painful politeness. Thomas asked appropriate questions about Ellie's schooling and interests. Ellie responded with careful enthusiasm, occasionally glancing at Noah, who remained withdrawn. When Thomas excused himself to speak privately with Sister Margaret, the two children were left alone in uncomfortable silence. Ellie approached Noah cautiously. "Do you like stories?" she asked, offering her book. Noah shrugged. "Stories are for little kids." "Oh," Ellie retreated slightly. "I just thought—" "Look," Noah interrupted, finally meeting her eyes. "Don't get your hopes up. My mom cries every night. She doesn't want you. She just feels guilty because her sister died." Ellie's face paled. "Her sister was my mother." Noah's expression shifted, realizing he had said too much. "Just don't expect anything," he muttered before walking out. The Callahan family departed without promises. Thomas shook Sister Margaret's hand firmly, but avoided specifics about future visits. Noah never looked back as they drove away, leaving Ellie watching from the window once more. That night, she retrieved a small wooden box from beneath her bed. Inside lay her treasures: the leather bookmark, a faded photograph of a woman whose features resembled her own, and a small notebook where she recorded her prayers. With trembling fingers, she wrote, "Dear God, please help them want me, even if just a little bit." 2 weeks passed. Christmas preparations transformed the orphanage with modest decorations and donated gifts. Ellie participated in the festivities with diminishing enthusiasm, checking the driveway each morning for a black sedan that never appeared. On December 23rd, Sister Margaret received a call. Her expression remained neutral as she listened, but her knuckles whitened around the receiver. After hanging up, she found Ellie helping younger children string popcorn garlands. "Ellie, may I speak with you?" she asked gently. In the privacy of her office, Sister Margaret chose her words carefully. "The Callahans have invited you to spend Christmas Day with them, not as a permanent arrangement, but as a getting-to-know-you visit." Ellie's face brightened momentarily before doubt clouded her expression. "Will I stay there after?" "This is just a visit, dear one. A first step." Sister Margaret squeezed her small hand. "They'll collect you tomorrow afternoon." That night, Ellie couldn't sleep. She imagined a Christmas tree larger than the orphanage's modest pine, presents wrapped in shiny paper, and most importantly, a family sitting around a table with an extra place set for her. She clutched her bookmark, whispering prayers into the darkness until exhaustion finally claimed her. The Callahan home stood imposingly at the end of a tree-lined driveway. Built in the colonial style with white columns and expansive windows, it seemed to Ellie like something from a storybook. Thomas greeted her at the door, taking her small suitcase with awkward courtesy. "Welcome, Ellie. I hope you had a pleasant drive." Sister Margaret had accompanied her, promising to return the following evening. She squeezed Ellie's shoulder reassuringly before departing, leaving the girl on the threshold of what might become her future. Inside, the house smelled of pine and cinnamon. A 12-foot Christmas tree dominated the living room, decorated with coordinating ornaments that sparkled in the afternoon light. Noah sat on the staircase, watching her entrance with guarded curiosity. "Rebecca is in the kitchen," Thomas explained, guiding Ellie through the immaculate house. "She's been cooking since dawn." Rebecca Callahan stood at the granite island, flour dusting her apron and hair pulled into a loose ponytail. At 38, she maintained a delicate beauty despite the shadows beneath her eyes. When she turned to see Ellie, her hands stilled on the rolling pin. "Hello," she said softly, studying the child's face with an intensity that made Ellie shift uncomfortably. "Thank you for inviting me, Mom," Ellie recited her practiced greeting. Rebecca nodded, turning back to her baking. "You'll be staying in the guest room. Noah, show her upstairs." Noah reluctantly led Ellie to a bedroom decorated in neutral tones, with a 4-poster bed that seemed impossibly large for one small girl. "Bathroom's through there," he pointed. "Dinner's at 6. Don't touch anything in my parents' room." Before Ellie could respond, he had disappeared down the hallway. She sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the softness of the comforter beneath her fingers. Carefully, she removed her worn shoes and lined them neatly beside the door before unpacking her meager belongings. The evening proceeded with stilted conversation. Rebecca asked polite questions, but rarely maintained eye contact, while Thomas attempted to bridge the awkward silences. Noah remained silent, pushing food around his plate and occasionally shooting curious glances at Ellie when he thought no one was watching. After dinner, Thomas announced, "We have some family coming over tomorrow for Christmas. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, quite a gathering." Rebecca tensed visibly. Perhaps Ellie would prefer to rest upstairs during the festivities. It might be overwhelming. "Nonsense," Thomas countered. "She's here to experience a family Christmas." Later that night, Ellie overheard raised voices from behind closed doors. "She looks exactly like her." Rebecca's voice trembled. "I can't bear it, Thomas. Not with everyone here tomorrow. She's a child, Rebecca, a child who lost everything. And I lost my sister, my twin. You didn't even consult me before inviting her for Christmas. It's been 3 years. Marion would have wanted—" "Don't tell me what she would have wanted." Rebecca's voice broke. "You have no idea what was between us, the promises we made, the secrets we kept." Ellie retreated to her room, curling into a ball beneath the unfamiliar blankets. She pressed her bookmark against her heart and whispered, "Please, God, help her not hate me." Christmas morning dawned bright and clear. Ellie woke early, carefully making her bed before venturing downstairs. The house remained quiet, so she sat beside the Christmas tree, admiring the twinkling lights and perfectly wrapped presents. "You're up early," Noah's voice startled her. He stood in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep. "I didn't want to be in the way," Ellie explained. Noah sat across from her, studying her with new interest. "You have her eyes. My aunt's, I mean." Ellie nodded. "Sister Margaret showed me a picture once. She said my mother was very beautiful." "She was," Noah agreed. "She used to come visit all the time. Then one day she just didn't anymore." He hesitated. "Mom never talks about her. They fought about something big before Aunt Marion died." The moment of connection ended abruptly when Rebecca entered, already dressed for the day. Her smile faltered slightly at finding the children together. "Noah, help your father bring up the extra chairs from the basement. Ellie, perhaps you'd like to get dressed. The family will arrive at 11. By mid-morning, the Callahan home filled with relatives arriving in waves of perfumed hugs and boisterous greetings. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins crowded the spacious rooms, their voices creating a symphony of overlapping conversations. Ellie stood awkwardly at the periphery, introduced briefly by Thomas as a special guest without further explanation. Rebecca's parents, distinguished silver-haired figures, regarded Ellie with poorly concealed confusion. Her resemblance to their deceased daughter prompted whispered conversations behind cupped hands. The children, sensing something unusual, maintained distance from the newcomer. During gift exchanges, Ellie sat quietly on a window seat, watching families share presents and memories. Thomas had thoughtfully purchased several gifts for her: books, a new sweater, and a stuffed bear, which she opened with genuine gratitude. Yet the hollow feeling in her chest expanded with each passing hour. By afternoon, the gathering had broken into smaller groups. Men congregated around the television watching football, women chatted in the kitchen, teenagers disappeared upstairs, and younger children played noisily with new toys. Ellie tried to join a group of girls approximately her age, but their private jokes and established dynamics left no natural opening. Eventually, she retreated to a corner of the family room, knees drawn to her chest, watching the celebration continue without her. Noah, entering with a plate of cookies, noticed her isolation. Something in her expression, resigned rather than self-pitying, made him pause. The small boy slipped down beside her on the hardwood floor, his socked feet stretching out while she sat with arms wrapped around her knees. Unlike the other children who laughed and played across the room, both Noah and Ellie remained separate from the joy unfolding before them. Noah's striped shirt had come partially untucked, and Ellie's grey sweater, new but already slightly too large, hung past her wrists. The contrast between them and the other children was stark. While cousins wore new Christmas outfits and shoes, Ellie's bare feet peeked out from beneath her jeans, having removed her worn shoes earlier to avoid scuffing the polished floors. From the dining room came the sound of adults laughing, their conversation flowing freely with reminiscences and inside jokes. Noah glanced at Ellie, noting how her eyes followed the movement of the happy family members, her expression a mixture of longing and resignation. He had seen that same look in the mirror many times since his aunt died and his mother retreated into grief. "They always do this," Noah said quietly, pushing a cookie toward her. "Act like everything's perfect when it's not." Ellie accepted the cookie without eating it. "Your family seems nice." "They're okay," he shrugged. "But they pretend, like how nobody mentions Aunt Marion even though Mom has her picture hidden in her dresser drawer." Ellie's eyes widened slightly. "She keeps a picture?" Noah nodded. "And letters, too, in a box she thinks nobody knows about." Their conversation was interrupted by Rebecca's mother approaching. "Noah, darling, come help serve the dessert." Her eyes passed over Ellie with polite disinterest. "You too, dear. Extra hands are always welcome." In the kitchen, Ellie was tasked with passing napkins, while Noah distributed dessert plates. Rebecca supervised from the island, her movements becoming increasingly tense as relatives commented on the approaching new year. "Of course, Rebecca will host the family reunion again," her sister-in-law announced. "It's tradition since Marion passed." Rebecca's hand trembled, causing her to drop a serving spoon. The clatter silenced the room momentarily. "Actually," she said tightly, "I was thinking perhaps we could skip the reunion this year." Her mother looked scandalized. "Skip it? But we've gathered every January 12th since your grandmother started the tradition. Marion would be—" "Please don't tell me what Marion would want." Rebecca's voice rose sharply. "None of you knew her like I did. None of you knew what she—" She stopped abruptly, eyes darting to Ellie, who stood frozen with napkins clutched in her small hands. An uncomfortable silence descended, broken only when Thomas stepped in to suggest serving the dessert in the dining room. As family members filed out, Rebecca remained motionless, staring at the countertop. Ellie hesitated, then approached cautiously. "I can help clean up, Mom." Rebecca looked at her as though seeing her for the first time. "Did she ever talk about me?" she asked suddenly, her voice barely audible. Ellie blinked in confusion. "My mother? I don't remember her very well. I was only 4 when she—" Rebecca nodded sharply, turning away. "Of course, you should join the others." That evening, after most relatives had departed, Ellie found herself excluded from bedtime preparations. While Noah was instructed to shower and prepare for tomorrow's activities, no one mentioned plans for her. Assuming she should make herself scarce, she retreated to the guest room where she sat cross-legged on the bed, writing in her prayer journal. "Everything okay in here?" Thomas appeared in the doorway, his expression kind but tired. Ellie nodded quickly, closing her journal. "Yes, sir. Thank you for the presents." Thomas entered hesitantly, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I know today wasn't easy. Family gatherings can be overwhelming even when you're used to them." "It was nice," Ellie insisted. "Everyone seemed happy." Thomas studied her face. "You know, you have your mother's honesty. She could never tell a convincing lie either." He sighed deeply. Rebecca and Marion were identical twins, but completely different in spirit. Rebecca plans, considers, calculates. Marion lived in the moment. They loved each other fiercely, but their differences created complications. Ellie listened intently, hungry for any information about her mother. "Rebecca hasn't been the same since the accident," Thomas continued. "Having you here, it's difficult for her, but I think it's also necessary." A soft knock interrupted them. Noah stood in the doorway, hair damp from his shower. "Dad, Grandma's on the phone. She forgot her scarf." After Thomas left, Noah lingered. "Are you coming to the family thing tomorrow? Everyone's staying at the lodge for skiing." Ellie shook her head. "I don't think I'm invited. Sister Margaret is coming to take me back tomorrow evening." Noah frowned. "That's stupid. Your family too." He hesitated before adding, "I found something you should see, in Mom's room." Before Ellie could respond, Noah disappeared, returning moments later with a weathered wooden box. "She keeps it in her closet. I saw her looking at it last night, after you went to bed." "We shouldn't," Ellie protested, even as Noah lifted the lid. Inside lay numerous photographs and letters. On top rested an envelope, addressed to Rebecca, in elegant handwriting, dated 3 days before Marion's fatal car accident. The seal was broken. "I've never seen what's inside," Noah admitted. "But Mom reads it sometimes when she thinks no one's around. She always cries after." Ellie carefully lifted the envelope. "We should put everything back." "What are you doing?" Rebecca's voice cut through the room like ice. She stood in the doorway, face pale with shock and fury. Noah jumped to his feet. "I just thought—" "Get out," Rebecca whispered, her voice trembling. "Both of you, now." Noah fled immediately. Ellie moved more slowly, carefully replacing the letter. "I'm sorry, Mom. We didn't read anything." Rebecca remained motionless until Ellie had passed, then closed the door with deliberate control. Through the wood, Ellie heard a muffled sob. That night, sleep eluded her. The house creaked and settled around her, filled with unspoken words and hidden sorrows. Around midnight, she slipped from bed and knelt on the plush carpet. Clutching her bookmark, she closed her eyes. "Dear God," she whispered, "please help Mrs. Callahan's heart not hurt so much when she sees me. I don't want to make anyone sad. And if I can't stay here, please find me a family that wants me. But if you could, I'd really like to stay with Noah and Mr. Callahan, even if Mrs. Callahan doesn't like me yet. Amen." As she rose, a strange impulse led her to the bedroom door. Carefully opening it, she peered into the darkened hallway. A sliver of light shone from beneath Rebecca's study door downstairs. Ellie hesitated, then descended the stairs with silent steps. The study door stood slightly ajar. Through the crack, she could see Rebecca seated at a desk, the wooden box open before her. The letter lay unfolded in her hands, illuminated by a single lamp. Ellie didn't intend to speak, but a floorboard creaked beneath her weight. Rebecca's head snapped up. "I'm sorry," Ellie whispered, preparing to retreat. Rebecca stared at her for a long moment. "Come in," she finally said, her voice hollow. Ellie entered cautiously, stopping several feet from the desk. Rebecca studied her with reddened eyes. "You look so much like her," Rebecca said softly. "I wasn't prepared for that." "I'm sorry," Ellie repeated, not knowing what else to say. Rebecca gestured to the letter. "Do you know what this is?" Ellie shook her head. "The last words my sister ever wrote to me." Rebecca smoothed the paper with trembling fingers. "She was coming to see me, to explain in person, but never made it. The accident happened halfway here." Ellie remained silent, understanding instinctively that Rebecca needed to speak. "Marion and I made a pact when we were 12. We promised to always tell each other everything, to never keep secrets." Rebecca's voice caught. "But she broke that promise. She had a child, you, and never told me until you were almost 4 years old." Ellie's heart beat faster. "Why?" Rebecca laughed bitterly. "Because she knew I wouldn't approve. Your father was married, Ellie, not to her. He had another family in another state. Marion was the other woman." She looked up, gauging Ellie's reaction. "She wrote that she was bringing you to meet me, finally. That she was sorry for keeping you secret. That she wanted my forgiveness. And you didn't get to give it to her," Ellie whispered, understanding dawning. Rebecca's composure cracked. "The last thing I said to her on the phone was that she had betrayed me. That I didn't want to meet her child born from lies." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Then she died, and suddenly there was you, this little girl with no one left, a living reminder of my sister's deception and my final cruelty to her." Ellie moved forward hesitantly until she stood beside Rebecca. With careful movements, she placed her hand over Rebecca's. My mother used to say that forgiveness isn't for the person who hurt you. It's a gift you give yourself. Ellie's voice was soft, but steady. I think that's why she was coming to see you, not just to ask forgiveness, but to give you the chance to feel better too. Rebecca stared at the small hand covering hers, the same shape as Marion's, but untouched by life's complications. When Thomas suggested adopting you, I couldn't bear it, Rebecca admitted. Then I couldn't bear the thought of you alone either. I've been stuck. I say stuck prayers sometimes, Ellie offered. When I don't know what to ask for anymore, Sister Margaret says God understands even when we don't have the words. Rebecca studied her face. What do you pray for, Ellie? A family, she answered simply, and for my mother to be happy in heaven, and lately, for you not to be sad when you see me. Something shifted in Rebecca's expression. She carefully refolded the letter and returned it to the box. It's very late. You should be in bed. Ellie nodded, turning to leave. At the door, she paused. Mrs. Callahan, I think my mother would forgive you. Sisters are supposed to, right? After Ellie left, Rebecca remained motionless, staring at the closed box. Eventually, she opened the bottom drawer of her desk and removed a folder labeled Adoption Papers, untouched since Thomas had brought them home months ago. Morning brought chaos as the family prepared for their annual skiing excursion. Suitcases cluttered the entryway, and relatives arrived in waves to carpool to the mountain lodge. Ellie remained in her room, packing her small suitcase for her return to the orphanage. A knock interrupted her folding. Noah entered without waiting for a response, already dressed in a puffy winter coat and hat. We're leaving soon, he announced. Mum says you should come downstairs. Ellie followed him to the crowded living room where Thomas was organizing transportation arrangements. Rebecca stood slightly apart, engaged in intense conversation with her parents. When she noticed Ellie, she approached with purpose. Ellie, there's been a change of plans. Rebecca's voice was steady, though her hands betrayed nervousness. If you'd like, we'd appreciate if you joined us at the lodge for the family gathering. Ellie blinked in surprise. But Sister Margaret... I've already called her, Thomas interjected, smiling broadly. She agreed you could stay with us through New Year's, provided you want to, of course. All conversation had ceased. Relatives watched with varying expressions of confusion and curiosity. Noah moved closer to Ellie, his presence unexpectedly supportive. I'd like that very much, Ellie managed, her voice barely audible. Rebecca nodded briskly. Good, you'll ride with us. Noah, help her find suitable clothes for the snow. As the children departed, whispers erupted among the relatives. Rebecca turned to face her family, standing straighter than she had in years. For those wondering, Ellie is Marion's daughter, she announced clearly. My niece, and hopefully soon my daughter as well. The adoption papers are being processed. Her mother gasped. Rebecca, you can't possibly. I can and I will, Rebecca interrupted. Marion made mistakes, as did I. But Ellie deserves a family who loves her. I intend to be that family. Thomas moved to stand beside his wife, his hand finding hers. For the first time in years, she didn't pull away. The family gathering at the mountain lodge became a turning point. Initially regarded with curiosity and whispers, Ellie gradually found her place among the extended family. Rebecca's public acknowledgement opened a door that had been sealed by secrets and resentment. On the third evening, during the traditional family talent show, Rebecca surprised everyone by inviting Ellie to join her at the piano. Together they played a simple duet that Marion had taught Rebecca when they were children. Though Ellie's skills were rudimentary, the symbolism of the moment brought tears to the eyes of those who understood the significance. Later, as children prepared for bed in the shared cabin rooms, Noah found Ellie sitting alone on a window seat, watching snow fall in the darkness. So you're really staying with us? He asked, sitting beside her. Ellie nodded. If everything goes through with the papers. Noah considered this. It'll be weird having a sister. I've never been a sister before, Ellie admitted. I've never been a brother. Noah shrugged. I guess we'll figure it out. A comfortable silence fell between them, broken only when Noah noticed the leather bookmark in Ellie's hands. What's that? It was my mother's. Your aunt's, Ellie explained, running her finger over the faded cross. It's the only thing I have from her. Noah studied it with interest. Mom has one just like it. Grandma gave them matching ones when they were kids. Ellie's eyes widened. Really? The next morning, Ellie approached Rebecca cautiously as she prepared breakfast in the lodge's communal kitchen. Noah said you have a bookmark like mine, she began hesitantly. Rebecca paused, then reached into her pocket, withdrawing a leather bookmark identical to Ellie's, though less worn. The same cross adorned its surface. Our mother gave these to us for our first communion, Rebecca explained softly. Marion must have wanted you to have hers. Ellie held out her bookmark. We match. Rebecca stared at the two bookmarks, symbols of a connection that transcended her sister's death and her own resistance. With sudden clarity, she understood Marion's final letter in a new light. Her sister hadn't just been seeking forgiveness, she had been offering Rebecca the greatest gift possible, a child to love, a continuation of their bond. Yes, Rebecca whispered, her voice thick with emotion. We match. And on New Year's Eve, the family gathered around a bonfire outside the lodge. Stars glittered overhead as Thomas raised his mug of hot chocolate. To family, he toasted. Those present, those remembered, and those newly found. Rebecca, standing with one arm around Ellie's shoulders, raised her own mug. And to second chances. Later that night, as fireworks exploded across the sky marking the arrival of a new year, Ellie knelt beside her temporary bed in the lodge. Noah slept soundly across the room, his soft snores providing rhythm to her whispered prayer. Thank you, God, for answering even when I didn't know what to ask for. Thank you for helping Mrs. Callahan's heart heal enough to see me. Thank you for Noah and Mr. Callahan and this family that might become mine. And thank you for my mother who loved me enough to try to make things right. She paused, fingering the leather bookmark that now lay beside Rebecca's in a small velvet pouch, a gift from her aunt that morning. And God, I think my mother and Mrs. Callahan are both right. Forgiveness isn't just something you ask for or something you give. Sometimes it's the bridge that lets people walk toward each other again. Amen. 3 months later, on a bright spring morning, Ellie stood between Thomas and Rebecca in a courthouse, wearing a new dress with matching shoes. Noah fidgeted beside them in an uncomfortable suit, though his complaints had ceased when Ellie had straightened his tie with sisterly authority. The judge smiled as she signed the final adoption papers. Congratulations, Ellie Callahan. It appears you have found your forever family. Rebecca knelt to Ellie's level, brushing a strand of auburn hair, so like Marion's, from her face. Your mother would be proud of the girl you're becoming, she said softly. And I am honored to help you continue that journey. That evening, Rebecca entered Ellie's bedroom, no longer a guest room, but a space filled with books, toys, and the colorful belongings of a child who knows she is home. Ellie sat cross-legged on her bed, writing in a new journal. What are you writing? Rebecca asked, sitting beside her. Ellie smiled. My prayers. Sister Margaret said I should keep them, to remember how God answers even when it seems impossible. Rebecca nodded, remembering the night she had found Ellie praying alone in her room at Christmas, the night something had shifted inside her, allowing grief to finally begin transforming into healing. Do you think prayers really change things? She asked softly. Ellie considered this seriously. Sister Margaret says prayer changes us first, and then we change things. She hesitated before adding, I think maybe my mother prayed for us to be a family someday. And even though she couldn't see it happen, God remembered. Rebecca drew her close, breathing in the scent of shampoo and childhood that now filled their home once more. Outside the window, spring flowers pushed through soil, once frozen and unyielding, reaching toward warmth and light with persistent hope. Then we'll keep remembering too, Rebecca whispered, "and be grateful for prayers answered in unexpected ways."